I feel like at that time of my life, it happened in 2016. I was very busy. I was living this really busy life, working three jobs, not taking like space for myself, leading up to it. And that's kind of where I was before it. And I was driving home on the freeway. One night I was in yoga teacher training and I was driving home on the freeway, which heads north from where I was. So it was a little drive, maybe 30 minutes or something. And I noticed that there was a car driving in the opposite direction, driving towards me. And the next thing I remember was just waking up. My car was blocking all four lanes on the freeway. And I realized at that moment that that car coming towards me had actually hit me and created um, a head-on collision, which was really severe and really bad. And I woke up in my car and realized that this was happening or that this had happened and realized the severity of it. And of course, I went into fear. I got really scared. My body just went into fight or flight. I tried to get out of the car and I realized my arm was broken and my leg was stuck. And it was at that moment that I realized my car was on fire at the front. I could see another car. There was a lot of fire happening. And I realized at that moment that I was trapped in my car. Even if I tried to leave, that I couldn't. Um, and that was a really scary moment. And in that moment, I remember it was like a gentle voice, or just a gentle voice that said to me, "You're going to be okay." And it was almost like I slipped out of my physical body here on earth, and I went into like a higher self state where I was able to see, or what I felt like it was my angels showing me that you'll be safe. You'll get out of here. They showed me getting out of the car, being placed on a stretcher. I visually saw all of that before it happened. So I felt safe. I was like, okay, I'm with God, I'm with my angels here. I'm going to be safe. But something kept pulling me back into my car, into the severity of, or the reality that, no, I'm stuck in a burning car right now. I don't know how I'm going to be safe. So it was almost like going between my like analytical brain into a space with my angels and God that felt safe. And I kept just going back where they're like, you're going to be safe, you will be okay, and you will get out. And they just kept showing me that vision. So I just decided to surrender to the situation. And eventually, about 45 minutes to an hour later, they were able to get me out of my car. And just like my vision had showed me, on the stretcher, taken to the closest ER. And that's when I was placed in a coma. It's an induced coma because my body was severely injured. Um, that they place you in this induced coma so that they can do these surgeries on you. And unbeknownst to me, I woke up from a coma and I thought it was the next day, but it was actually a week later. So I had been asleep for a week. Actually, this week or just yesterday is my life-aversary. I don't know if I shared that with you through our emails, but um, November 4th is the day that it happened. So this past week is my life-aversary. I celebrate it every year. It's been 8 years since it happened. So each year I celebrate life. I have my little ritual. So I've been doing that these past weeks. And yesterday was 11/11. And that's actually the day that I woke up from my coma 8 years ago. So yesterday was a really big day for me. I always celebrate November 4th and November 11th each year because they're such a monumental part of my life, like a birthday almost, like a milestone. And I call it my life anniversary because yes, that's the day that I woke up. It's like, rising and coming back to life, but this time with a new a different body, injuries that were just so beyond me to wake up to this. And it was, a journey from there. And I know that we'll probably go into that a little bit more later, the aftermath and how I, was able to make it through that. Um, and in the interim of that, while I was in a coma, I experienced a, a very profound near-death experience. And that's where I came to a place of meeting with my archangels and my spirit guides when I was in this coma state. And that was a really profound experience that has allowed me to have a lot of faith and compassion in the healing. Yeah, I didn't feel that when I arrived at the hospital at all. All I remember arriving at the hospital was removing all of my clothes and my jewelry, and I was actually freaking out. I was like, no, don't take my ring. I've been wearing that. So that wasn't the place where I remember. I do remember when I was in the car, when I kept leaving and like going above. That's where I really remember like almost transitioning in a way into a different place. And that's that was the beginning of it for me. That was the beginning of having this conversation. To me, what that felt like my angels or somebody was speaking to me from above, because nobody else was in the car. It was just me and what felt like this conversation with God and my angels that just kept showing me and reassuring me, like showing me almost the future, like you will get out of here, you will be placed on the stretcher, you'll be taken to the closest ER and you will be safe, because I thought I was going to die. So that was the first time that I remember that conversation happening with God and my angels. And I remember just praying and having a conversation of like, I don't think I'm ready to die yet. I don't want to. Whatever we need to do to keep me here, please. It was like begging, like, I'm not ready, please. And that was that conversation of you're gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay. And just kept showing me. Um, and so that was what I remember of that communication.
So it sounds like you were really keen to come back. And in a lot of NDEs, what we hear is that people find it so beautiful and so loving over
Mm-hmm.
there that they struggle to feel the need to come back. And so I was wondering what it was like for you, because it sounds like you were really determined to come back. Could you
Yeah.
elaborate a bit more on your feelings about that?
Yeah, I think this is probably a good time to like maybe go into that space of where I was in a coma because you're right. It was so beautiful in that space. And my experience took me to what I remember is waking up and waking up in my consciousness, I guess. My near-death experience took me to a familiar place to me, which is Italy and Venice. I've been there many times before in my life, and I guess for me, in my consciousness, that was a safe space for me. So I found myself in Venice, walking the canals and knowing that my body on earth was really injured and that I was in hospital and that I was, fighting for my life on earth, or they were, there to keep me alive. And I was conscious of that in this space. So I knew that was happening, but in this space, my body was really healthy. I was an able body. I was running and skipping and doing cartwheels because I knew that I could move my body with also this awareness that back on earth, the severity of the injuries of my body. And once I was in this space in Venice, I was given this time to really think about life and think about my life as a whole of what happened before I came here. So it was almost like running through my life like a movie and showing me, all of the people in my life that I love, showing me maybe experiences that I had had that caused pain, and this like that we need all of that is here for us on earth. We're meant to experience the light, the dark, all of the feelings, all of the emotions, and just really showing me like that fluidity of life and the purpose that humans have here, and the gifts that we get to experience here, but also, the shadows that we experience here as well. And so in that space, I saw everything on a whole, and it did make me in that time one or really decide, do I want to go back there or not? And that was a place, like you said, like a lot of people, it's so beautiful when we go into that I call it the in-between space. It's so beautiful when we get to go there that it is hard to want to come back. And it does feel challenging because life comes with a lot of challenges. So it does make us think like, why would we want to go back? Or, why can't we just stay here? And everything is all about the unknown. If we come back, it's still the unknown. If we don't come back, I don't know what happens from there. I just had a little glimpse and was able to meet with my angels in that space. But everything is all about the unknown. So I think it's just about life. Are we courageous enough to want to just dive into the unknown and continue to live life? Um, and that was the decision that I was faced with at that time. And so I was walking these canals with what for me felt like days, weeks. It felt like a really long time that I was there. Um, and all of a sudden, from that space, I was now kind of taken up from being in the Venice space to a space to me that felt like the cosmos. In the sky, the galaxy, there were stars, it was dark, and I now became just like a little light being. And this is the space where I met with my angels, and I met with two archangels that had come to me. One of them I had known about, Archangel Michael. I had heard about this archangel before. I had had a vision of him years prior to that. So I felt like I recognized this archangel, and he introduced himself as Archangel Michael. And on my other side was another archangel, which presented himself as Archangel Raphael. And with them were about five other guides or angels or light beings. They showed themselves to me in like a light being, and I felt really safe with them. And the conversations that I had with them were very fluid. It wasn't like we were using actual words or language like we do here on Earth. It was more of a feeling. It was like I just had to feel something, and they knew, and they would respond with that same energy. And that's when they did explain to me, just circling back around to your question of like wanting to come back, was where they let me decide. They gave me this choice of, this is your life here, or you can come with us. And that's a different life, or that's a different, again, the unknown. I didn't go there. I didn't choose that option. I came back. And yeah, I don't know, but I do still wonder. There's always a part of me that is like, what was that? What was that road like? You know? Um, and at the same time, I'm so grateful for my life here and so grateful that I did choose to come back. And but that was quite a decision to make. And it was so beautiful there. I could have
I
stayed.
can imagine. I can imagine. It sounds like such a peaceful and wholesome experience that um, I can understand why you mentioned there was no fear and you felt very welcome there. So I was wondering, when you met the archangels as well as the other light beings, was there anything conveyed to you, or do you recall any kind of like a conversation outside of you having to make this decision on whether to return or not?
Yeah, I think like what they were showing me is that we all have great purpose here. Every single one of us has this beautiful story to tell. That's why I love the name of your podcast, actually, because I fully am in alignment with the name of your podcast, because every single one of us is a resilient human being that has been through something, whether it's, something like injuries, or maybe you've experienced loss, or maybe even just breaking up with your partner or something, or going through a divorce. We've all been through something. We've all have this tale of resilience. And I think for me, that's really what I learned from it, was that every single being here is divine, is perfect. We're here for a reason. God didn't just decide, okay, this person is good enough and this person is lovable, but that person is not, and that person doesn't deserve it. It's not like that. It's and but that's our perception as human beings. We go through that. We have all these wounds and we're like, oh, I'm not good enough, or I don't fit in, or you know, whatever. I was abandoned, all those stories that we go through, which is our perception. But that perception is not like that with our angels. It's like every single one of us is divine perfection that came here with purpose, and we're meant to be here. We're meant to be here. We're meant to be given these little tests so that we can, like, it's for ourselves, to show yourselves. So when I was in that space and I was looking at my life as a movie, where there were times where I was like, oh, I'm not good enough. That story was coming up for me, or making choices based on the way that I felt that maybe didn't serve me. When I was looking at it from above, like that bird's eye view, it's like, oh no, that was all divine. There weren't any mistakes there. That that's how it was meant to happen, because that's what got us to the next part of our lives. And it's like we feel like we're going through something so hard and challenging sometimes, and then all of a sudden we're on the other side of it. And like, how did we even get through? But we did, because we're so resilient as human beings. And so when you ask me that question, that's truly what I saw. I just saw everybody living their divine purpose. Everybody's doing exactly what they're supposed to do. There's no mistakes. And for me, coming back, that gave me so much compassion for other people. It's really hard to judge anybody anymore. I know that it's a human condition that we go into judgment toward ourselves, judgment toward others, judgment toward situations. But when something happens like that, it really teaches you compassion, because every single one of us has a story to tell, and we're all resilient. We're all just doing the best that we can. And that was a huge lesson for me. It's just like that compassion for other people, because we don't know what others have been through.
That's so beautiful. It reminds me of what Brene Brown says. Um, she often says everybody's doing their best. So, for instance, the person cutting you off in traffic or cursing you because they feel like
Mm-hmm.
you cut them off, like they might be hurrying to the hospital because they have a family emergency. So, you never really have the full context of what's
Right.
going on, you know? You might feel like, oh, that was so rude. You shouldn't have done that. Absolutely fair. But
Mm-hmm.
they're doing the best they can in any given moment. And if you were to
Mm-hmm.
have more context to it, you might even say, oh, you know what, that's absolutely fine given what you're going through or
Mm-hmm.
whatever's going on in your mind, absolutely fine, no worries at all.
Exactly. Right. And, that doesn't give other people the right or opportunity to take advantage of us, or, because we're compassionate people, there is a line that we draw if somebody has gone out of their way intentionally to hurt us or whatever. But even then, still, it's like a conversation of like, I always want to dig a little deeper and want to know why. And then again, even then, still, you find out that, oh, wow, okay, that's what they've been taught, or that's the only way that they know. So even then, still, we're like, well, we can't blame them, or, you know, think of them as a terrible person, because that's literally the where they're at and what they have learned or what they know, until we unlearn that and become aware, and look at our actions. But yes, it gave me a lot of compassion for other people's stories. And yes, if somebody's rude or cuts me off at the grocery store now, I'm like, I'm just gonna send you some love, because I don't know what's going on in your life, but you obviously just need some love right now. And so, it's my human reaction to be like, what the fuck? But after a minute, I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm just gonna send them some love, because who knows, like you said, you could be rushing to the hospital, or their wife is about to give birth. Who knows? So, yes, it gives us that space to have more compassion.
Absolutely. Could not agree more. So, I wanted to also talk about recovery. Now, You had an awful accident and you were in a coma for a week, during which they've had many surgeries that you've had to go through. Now, what was recovery like? And just, getting back to your old self, as well as integrating, this whole experience that happened that you probably did not expect at all or weren't sure what it was. How did you balance the two and how did you move through that process?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Um, it was really challenging. It was really a lot of work. Um, I feel like what comes to me first is just like sharing these stages that we go through after trauma like this. Um, there's so many different layers of it. We've, for me personally, the first layer that I had to go through was grief. And grief is oh, it's such a hard one. So grief was like grieving my body the way that it was before, like the physicality. So I was so active. I was a hairstylist. I was a yoga instructor. I was like a really active person. I never once was injured before that. Maybe like I stubbed my toe or something one time when I was a kid, but I never had to deal with injuries before. So the first kind of part of my healing was going through this grieving phase where you grieve the way that my life was before. I felt like I was a whole different person. So there's with grief, it can be confusing, and there's a lot of parts to that where like it's up and down. It's a roller coaster. Like one minute I was laughing hysterically at something, and the next minute I was like bawling my eyes out, screaming, like, just in excruciating pain. And so I just wanted to say that grief, it happens in our life a lot. Like I had mentioned before, we can grieve just from breaking up with a loved one or partner that you've been with for a long time. So it doesn't even have to be a death or something that's like the death of, it felt like the death of myself, the death of like the way I used to be. And that was probably really the hardest stage for me, was being a human in a new body. And yeah, and just like that recovery that came from being in pain. So there were two options for me. The first option was to just turn into a blob of a human and go into a dark depression, which that happened at sometimes. But what kept me going and out of that was I just kept reaching for my light, my inner light. And I had been doing healing before this. I was doing a lot of inner work. I was doing a lot of healing with my inner child, which is the work that I actually do now with others. I was doing like a lot of shadow work. I was working with a mentor. I was really diving into like healing my childhood and a lot of ways that I was, my story of not being enough. So I had some tools. Luckily, I had some tools to help me, like with my breathing. I had tools to help me mentally to be able to come back to a space of like just lean into it, no matter how hard this gets, no matter how dark I got, no matter how much I was feeling the emotions, the grief, the anger that came through, so much anger, um, was leaning into it more. Like, how can I be with this? And it was interesting because I couldn't run away anymore. And I realized that was my pattern in life of like running away from my problems. Like, literally like moving on to the next thing, right? You're just like, okay, not dealing with that and just moving on. And a lot of humans, we do this. And through this time, I couldn't run away. I literally couldn't even move my legs. So I was stuck in a wheelchair. So I had no choice other than to just lean in, let myself experience the feelings I was feeling, like journaling about it, letting myself like cry, let all of the anger come up, and just finding those healthy ways to be able to just experience the trauma that I was feeling. And so it was not about shutting it down. It was not about putting it on the back burner, like I'll deal with those emotions later. It was about being with my feelings in every moment. Like, they're like day by day. This was like a moment to moment thing. I had to nurture myself in every moment and just remind myself, like, it's okay. We're going to be safe. We are safe now. It's like anybody who's been through trauma will experience PTSD. It's just what happens. That's what the brain does when we go through trauma. It stores it away. It's like, can't deal with it now, but we'll deal with it later. When you're just doing nothing, watching TV, like your PTSD might come up or something will trigger it. And so it truly was about like being with myself, having this self awareness of like, okay, I'm having anxiety, I'm having a panic attack right now. Let's breathe, use your tools. How can we lean in? How can we communicate that with somebody that is here so they understand what you're going through at this time? So, surely it was, that mental emotional state was about leaning in, listening to my pain, letting the pain be there, letting myself feel it, letting myself cry, letting myself journal and write about it so that, I could fully exist in this experience because I knew it was like so profound. And I knew that once I got through it, um, like how much I could help other people that have been through this pain. So, or this trauma. So that was like the emotional stuff, right? That's like nurturing yourself, like going to a trauma therapist weekly, getting EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization, which is like they use that for PTSD. So showing up in a way for myself like I had never shown up before. So like I said, I could turn into this blob of a human and go into my depression, which happened at times, or use my light to remember like, no, let's get through this. You are resilient, you are strong, and we're going to do this. And so it was a lot of showing up for myself. Um, And then the physical stuff, that was, a whole other thing. That was, again, showing up for myself in ways where I had to listen to my PT, whatever my physical therapist told me to do, whatever exercises, every single day, being able to just get up and do them no matter how, tired I was or how hard it felt or how much pain I was in, was about letting myself feel it all and experience everything on a whole. And the main ingredient is trust, a lot of trust.
Absolutely. It's so important, trusting yourself and trusting the process. And you've
Mm-hmm.
mentioned there you had, these two choices of either doing the work and working on yourself and figuring it out, or becoming this blob of a human, right? And it sounds to me like we could rephrase that as the hard way and the easy way. because it
Hmm.
would be so easy to just shut down and say, well, this shouldn't have happened to me. It's awful. And I'm just going
Hmm.
to sit here forever and hate everybody because I don't deserve it. But
Which did
you chose,
happen at times. It did happen at times. But yes, I chose. I
and
chose
that's
the
the
hard
thing
way,
you
which
did.
eventually became the easy way.
And I do think that these things happen intermittently. So I don't, and I think that's one of the most beautiful thing that I've discovered having spoken to a lot of NDEers is that as you've mentioned, it's not just one choice where you say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to take the hard road, and then you never falter. Because life happens, and you have days when you're feeling down, and you just kind of have to pick yourself back up. So it's not about being perfect and 100% here, but it's about being on this side, for most of the time and trying to bring yourself to it whenever you feel like you might be slipping into the easy path.
Yeah. And a lot of that is just about this self-awareness. And it's okay, like just going back to the blob of a human thing, it's okay to that's okay too. Like that, if we need to go there and like be in our little dark cave and just be there for a moment, it's like the ebb and the flow. But we need to remember that we do have this light, and we don't need to stay there in that dark depressed phase for too long. It's important for us to go there, feel our feelings, stay, whatever we need to do to process in that space. So that space is great for process, but we can't stay there for too long, otherwise that's what will eventually happen, and no healing can happen in that space. And so it's, again, coming back to that resilience, and these stories of resilience is like being able to just crawl out of that dark space again and come back and be like, "Oh, it's going to be okay." And honestly, a lot of that came from that experience that I did have with the angels, that reminded me that I was going to be okay. I was going to get through this. So that was always in the back of my head too. It's just like, okay, no matter how dark we get, how much we go into the cave, everything is going to be okay. And everything has always been okay. It's just the experiences that we have to go down and feel and go to the depths of the feeling. And the deeper we go into those depths, um, the higher we come back, like the higher that we rise from that, because like the deeper we go, the higher we come back. We've got to root down to rise. And that is such a important part of the process. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying like, no, you just have to be good all the time and like resilient, and not, no, that's not being a human. Being a human is being able to feel those ebbs and flows and be able to use your light to come back up and be like, no, you're not going to bring me down. You're not going to bring me down. I'm going to shine my light until, I feel safe again. And, or not until, like, while I'm here in this world, and show others that we can feel safe, and that will come from a feeling within. And that can only come through healing and time. Time is healing, and healing is time.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I was really fascinated by is you've mentioned your life anniversary. And I think that's such a cool concept of celebrating the day and the week, the part of the year when you survived, and then always sort of celebrating, I've made this. Like, because I can imagine the memories of what you were able to achieve would fade with the years, but sort of having to come back to, what you've been able to do with yourself. Like, it must be so amazing, and it must be really, I think, a place that brings you a lot of joy. So, could you share more about how you celebrate this? And because I think it could be a great inspiration, for anyone listening that has maybe disease and
Mm.
ended up succeeding, or has gone through something, that I think we need to remember those wins, because
Yeah,
often we remember the losses, right? If there's anything
yeah,
we've lost or didn't win, we tend to dwell on it, but we rarely remember the things we did well. So I'd love to hear more about it.
yeah, yeah, that's a great question. Um, well, one of the things, well, it's like a whole ritual that I go through on the days, and um, I start with, yeah, just like waking up and doing like a gratitude meditation. I like to do that most days when, if I remember in my meditation, but just wake up and just move up my body, like, thank you for my feet, thank you for my legs, thank you for my knees, so forth, all the way up through the body, and just give that gratitude for my body because it went through so much. So then I like to do some movement because I can. So I love to do like yoga or Pilates. And that's like these are regular practices for me as well because again, each day I remember like, oh my gosh, I couldn't even move my feet at one point. I couldn't even stand on my legs. So now I get to like wake up and do Pilates or do yoga. So I really make a big point of that, of the movement. Um, and dance, like putting on a song, dancing, that like really like brings like that energy. Um, and I just like to really treat myself, whatever it is. Like sometimes we go out of town, like it's a whole celebration. We'll go and like do a trip or something. It's like a birthday. I don't even do this stuff really for my birthday, but I do it at this time of year. This year we didn't do a trip, so I just like to spend the day like surrounding myself with people that I love, celebrating. There will be a time where I'll maybe like go through and look back at some photos, and that's usually like it's really important to experience the feelings still. So, I'll probably spend some time crying on that day or just even like throughout that the weeks, even if I'm not trying to like evoke emotions, it's still like an emotional time for me. So I just let myself cry whenever I need to experience the feelings that arise with it. Again, just like leaning in. I'm not trying to like suppress anything or just being with myself um and sharing that. There's usually like a family call because my whole family flew out. I'm in San Diego, California. All of my family's in Australia. So at the time of the accident, my whole family flew out to be with me. So it's kind of a big time of year for all of us. So we usually do like a family call, um, celebrate, talk about it a little bit, but mostly just celebrate. And then we finish the day by going to the site where it happened, or there's this little space. It happened on the freeway, and there's this little space behind the freeway, which it has this gorgeous gate and a big tree. And each year I go and just put flowers down there, and it's just a day of remembrance. But most of all, it's a lot of self love, a lot of self care. I'll treat myself to a massage or something that just feels really good.
How can people find you? If anybody wants to know more about you or they want to work with you, how can they reach out?
Yeah, so if anybody is interested in knowing more about my story, I have a book that I wrote about it. It's called Soul of a Spirit Warrior, a true story of healing survival and resilience, and that goes through my whole experience. If you're interested. Otherwise, working with me is just very easy, simple through my website. You can check out the types of healing services I offer. I do a lot of counseling. I work with people mostly through trauma or childhood trauma. And I also work with people for like relationship harmony as well. So those are the main uh, counseling that I offer. And you can just simply find me through my website. There's a portal there where you can email me. I think that's just how you found me. And I will get back to you as soon as I can. And it's very easy to schedule a session. I do remote over the phone, or I have a wellness center that I opened. If you're in San Diego and you want to come and check out the center, it's really beautiful. We offer so many amazing treatments there. My husband's also an acupuncturist, so we do a lot of work together. And that's how you can find me. And please reach out. I love connecting with people. I love um, sharing my story, and I love being able to support and guide others. And if I can't, or if I don't have that medicine for you, I have a lot of resources and a lot of other people that I can share. So that's how you can find me.